I graduated college, I was about 24 years old. I really wanted to get out on my own and try living alone. Luckily for me, my grandma had asked to be moved into an assisted living center about a year prior. I had asked my parents if I could live there. They talked it over with my grandma, and she agreed it would be nice to have someone there after a year of it sitting empty. This was in kind of an up-and-coming area, but still had its rough spots. I was excited until I got there to do a walkthrough to see how I was going to set up my things. The house was a shotgun-style home, with a cellar that could only be accessed from the outside. While I was walking through the house, I swore I was hearing noises. Finally realized they were coming from the basement. I called the police and they came out and escorted 6 people from the cellar. They were squatters that had been living there. After they left, I went down there to find all kinds of stuff. The cops took all the drugs and anything else illegal. It looked like someone had spray painted the walls all over. It was just a concrete cellar where the water heater and HVAC were, so I wouldn't have really cared, except it seemed to be kind of satanic. I don't know anything about that stuff, but there were a couple of pentagrams and a chalk circle on the floor. Cops didn't really have anything to say about it. They didn't know either. I poured some water on the floor to wash away the circle, but the walls I just left as is. Fast forward a few months of me living there, I had forgotten all about it. Had started dating my future wife, and she was over. We were getting ready for bed, and in the bathroom brushing our teeth. A knock came from the back door. I ignored it, but it came again. It was 1 a.m., and this was my back door. Someone had to have come into my backyard by opening the fence gate. I grabbed my gun and went to the door, keeping it out of view. Some guy was standing on the porch. I opened the interior wooden door, but kept the outside storm door shut and locked. I asked him what he was here for since it was so late. All he said was, "Is Christina here?" I told him he had the wrong house, and all he said was, "Oh, so do you want me to leave?" I told him he better leave and not come back. He just stood there staring at me. I was getting very nervous at this point and shut the door. He walked down the steps and just stood in my backyard staring at the house. Then he tried to open the cellar doors. I had them padlocked and he gave up. I opened the back window and told him to get out of here before the cops show up, or he gets shot, or both. Again, he just stared, but then finally left. I didn't sleep that night. Again, a couple months later, my girlfriend told me that guy was back, just standing in my backyard staring at the house. This time it was in broad daylight. I called the cops this time. He tried the cellar doors again, but left before they showed up. The next day, I went down to the cellar to see if maybe there had been something left behind that he was trying to get, but found nothing. It was just a damp, disgusting cellar with a dirt floor. I have zero idea why he wanted in there. I highly doubt the satanic stuff had anything to do with it. It just made this creepier. I unfortunately had to move out sometime later as I could no longer afford it. Never saw that guy again. I was an 11-year-old boy walking home from school around 4 p.m. I was on an empty road and about 5 minutes from my house. There are a few houses around and a couple of alleyways. As I was walking, a guy, maybe 19 years old, in a black hoodie was walking behind me. He asked me, "Excuse me, are there any alleyways around here?" I was a dumb 11-year-old and I didn't see that as a suspicious question. I thought he maybe needed to use it as a landmark so he could remember where he was going. I pointed one out that was very close by and continued trotting along. About 10 seconds later, I felt an explosion of pain at the back of my head and was grabbed and frog marched towards the alley. I realized he had sucker punched me, and even as I was being frog marched, I remember thinking this must be some kind of joke. We got to the alley. On each side was a fence with stone posts. I was sobbing a bit here, and he must have wanted to shut me up, so he pinned me against the fence, grabbed my head, put it against the stone post, drew it back, and told me to just close your eyes. He then shoved my head towards the stone pillar in an attempt to knock me out. Luckily, I threw my hands in front of my head to cushion the blow, and I wasn't hurt. He probably watched too many movies and thought that would knock me out instead of causing brain damage. He then decided this was getting too risky. The alley leads out onto a common, so it wasn't that closed off. He simply walked away and I ran back home. The police were called, and the last I heard, he tried to do it again to someone else. Except this time, the child's father saw him do it and sat on him until the police arrived. I think we all know what his intention was. This happened to me roughly 1.5 years ago, and I still get anxious thinking back about what happened in the summer of 2023. It was the year I had my first success with my online business, which allowed me to start traveling Europe while working and saving up for my dream of buying farmland. 2023 started amazingly. I lived a few months in Malta, then in Budapest, visiting friends who study abroad. I'm originally from Germany. I'm 32, turning 33 this year. The first few destinations were a wonderful contrast to the miserable, cold winters that drag on for months in Germany. After having a tremendous time in Malta and Budapest, it was already the beginning of summer. My final destination that summer was to visit a friend. Let's call him Ben. He's about a year younger than me and currently studying medicine in Varna, located in the very east of Bulgaria. It's an interesting place with lots of Soviet-style, slightly run-down architecture, but it still has its charm as a beach city. The people are very nice and there are some beautiful spots. There are many expats and I spent my days enjoying the large parks near the beach itself, and its various cafes and clubs. I met lots of people and frequently went out to beach clubs with them on weekends. It was a nice hot summer and I was enjoying myself until one particular night. I was out with Ben and many of his university friends again. We partied all night, had drinks, danced for hours, and just enjoyed ourselves during this wonderful summer night. Since we'd been to day events before the party, I started feeling tired and decided to head home. I should describe the layout of the city as it's quite unique. Varna has a beach along its entire length, and for most parts, there are very big parts stretching for kilometers along the beach before they lead to the city. My rented apartment was slightly northwest of the clubs, roughly a 10 to 15 minute walk, which I'd done many times. People have warned me about occasional attacks or muggings and robberies, always asking me to walk at least part of the way with someone. I usually didn't listen. I just walked with my music playing, though I remained wary of my surroundings. That night, a few people who were also tired left with me. They lived a bit more west, so I had to leave them after 5 minutes and continued alone with my music. It must have been around 4 a.m. when I came to a park I usually crossed, separate from the main beach parks, closer to where I was living. Being summer and a weekend, there were still a few people walking around and driving even at 4 a.m. When I entered the park, I wasn't shocked to see someone sitting on a bench, maybe 50 meters ahead of me to the right. He was sitting there, staring at his phone, and I remember the scene vividly. Behind him were some bushes and trees, but as the lighting in the park was very sparse, I only noticed at the last moment that someone was approaching him from behind through the bushes. I think because I walked into the park, the guy sitting on the bench must have briefly looked up from his phone and heard someone approaching. It all happened so fast. I saw someone running out of the bushes with both hands raised over their head, holding a large rock, sprinting at that guy, still sitting there as he turned his head. Not immediately realizing the danger, I kept walking briefly before stopping. The guy on the bench screamed and ran straight out of the park, vaulting over another row of bushes and disappearing across the street. I pulled out my headphones and stood there watching, not fully comprehending what was happening. You need to understand that all of this happened so fast, until the guy who had just tried to attack the other person with a rock turned to face me. A shiver ran down my spine as adrenaline rushed through me, preparing me to run. When he lifted that rock again and started manically smiling while running in my direction, I turned and ran for my life. He followed me for roughly 2 minutes. I could still see him behind me even after crossing the street. I ran around the block and was incredibly relieved to find a kebab shop still open. I rushed through the door. The people inside were shocked and I couldn't speak straight, but I didn't need to say much as a psychopath came to the store and started bashing the big window with a rock. When the glass broke, he finally ran away. What makes this even more chilling is that I later discovered I probably encountered someone who wasn't new to violence. In the same city, in the same park. Someone had been bludgeoned and then killed, with multiple stabs in the back, just 1 year earlier. So the weirdest thing happened this morning. High 30 female went to the gym around 5:30 a.m. The building is open 24 hours, and as such, there was always a security guard manning the front desk that sits in the middle of a large, fairly empty foyer. Behind the security desk is the row of elevators. The gym is on the 4th floor, and I'm not sure what's on the other floors above or below it. A bunch of office spaces, etc. I walked in off the street, still dark outside, ready to work out. I was still really sleepy. I noticed the security guard is one I haven't seen before. He smiled hello at me from behind his security computer, and immediately I felt weird. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, but I got these weird chills, and I thought to myself, I don't like this guy. Before I could give him the benefit of the doubt, he stood up and walked out from behind the desk to wait with me by the elevators, which I thought was also weird. Didn't he have to remain at the security desk? Why would he be going to another floor? But who knows? I don't know what business he has as a security guard. That being said, I still didn't want to ride in an elevator with him. Something just told me to stay put. When the elevator came, he made a gesture to me that was kind of like, after you, motioning to the elevator. I faked a phone call and smiled in a way that said, oh, looks like I can't take the elevator, all yours. This is where it gets fucked up and where I need people's opinions. I stayed there for another 7 minutes. I know it was about that long because I listened to 2 songs in my headphones. Then I pushed the elevator button and it dings immediately, like he was already on the floor. Sure enough, the door opens and I walk over to it. The guy is still in the elevator. He never left the floor. He never went up. He was just standing in the elevator the whole time. Was he waiting for me? Then, the creepiest thing, he smiles at me as though to say, aren't you going to get in? I took like 3 steps backward. He could tell I was really startled. Like an idiot, I took another fake phone call. Then I decided to take the stairs the whole way. As I was working out, I got less sleepy and was still thinking about that interaction. It was getting more and more bizarre as I remembered it. Can anyone give me their opinion on what could have happened here? Was I overreacting by being freaked out? I just had this horrible feeling and still do, even though it was about 6 hours ago. This story is 100% true, and it's always creeped me out. I think about it a lot. About 3 years ago, I was out for a late night walk in a park that was about 2 blocks from where I lived at the time. It was a pretty safe neighborhood, so I often felt comfortable walking around alone during the late hours. I remember it being around 3:30 in the morning. Don't ask why I was up that late or walking around during that time. Let's just say I was going through some stuff. In hindsight, I know it wasn't smart, especially as a young woman. Anyway, I approached the park, which was lined with large bushes. There was also a street next to the park, and on the other side of the street, a large grassy field. Suddenly, I spotted a bald man carrying large objects, wrapped in black plastic. He had on blue surgical gloves and a long plastic jacket. He seemed to be transporting these bagged items across the street from the park and into the field. I stopped and watched for a moment. As he began crossing the street again with more bagged items, he stopped when he saw me and ran toward the bushes. He stuffed the bags into the bushes and hid in them. I could see him clearly, and the whole situation gave me bad vibes. I quickly turned around and started walking back home. I glanced back to make sure he wasn't following me, and I saw his bald head peering over the bushes, staring at me. I started speed walking, and when I was about a block away, I saw him sprint across the street and hide behind a large tree. Again, all I could see was his bald head peering around the side of the tree, staring at me. By this point, my heart was racing, but I kept walking quickly. I didn't want to run because I didn't want him to know I could see him following me. My thought process was, if a lion is stalking you, it's not a good idea to run, because they'll start chasing you. I just focused on staying calm and getting home safely. Finally, I reached my house and locked both the front and back doors. I tried to shake off what had happened and go to sleep. The next day was completely normal. I decided to walk to the park in the daylight, and there were lots of people around, and I checked the bushes to see if he left anything behind. Later that night, I sat down to watch a movie. I decided to not go on any more late night walks after that incident. Even though nothing happened to me, it was really creepy, and I realized it could have turned into a bad situation. You never know what someone like that is capable of. It definitely seemed like I had caught him doing something suspicious. While I was watching the movie, I got up to grab a glass of water. My kitchen has a window next to the sink with a view of the backyard, and I always kept the kitchen lights off at night, so I could keep an eye on the yard without anyone being able to see me. When I looked out into the backyard, to my surprise, I saw him standing in the middle of my yard, just staring at my house. I knew it was him because, even in the dark, I could make out his pale bald head. I immediately cracked open the window and yelled, "Hey!" He took off running, leaving the gate to my fence wide open. Since then, I never saw the man again. I still have no idea what he was doing that night, or what his intentions were in following me home and stalking my house, but I don't think I want to know.